In this video, we're going to make a guess the number game. Let's just have a look through the completed programs. In Scratch, it looks like this. So as you can see, it feeds back to the user whether their guess is too high or too low, and it also tells them how many guesses it took to get the number. Now let's have a look in Python. Now in Python we've only got text. It's far too complicated to be using tkinter or Pygame at this stage to be able to get those sort of graphics. So we'll get the text version down. Then down the track we can look at refactoring this with some more exciting graphics. If we run this, pick a number between 1 and 20. Took me 5 guesses. So let's have a look at the code completed first, and then we'll look at building them from scratch. We have a variable called number, which stores a random number between 1 and 20. And then we have this repeat block here. Now this repeat block keeps running until a condition is met. The condition that is met is if the user's guess matches the number. So in here we have the user guesses a number between 1 and 20, and we store that in this variable, and if that number matches this first number here, well then we can break out of this loop and continue down the code to this block here which says you got it and it took you this many guesses. So if you're inside this loop, it's going to run forever until the condition is met. If the first attempt is the user guess is bigger than the number, it will say you're too high. It will add 1 to this guesses variable to let people know that they had 1 guess before, now they might have 2 guesses. And then it repeats it in the loop and says again, pick a number between 1 and 20. Let's say this time they picked a number that was less than the actual number. Well, we would say too low, add another 1 to the guesses variable to let people know how many guesses it took them. And this loop runs until the user's guess does match the number, and then we break out of that block, continue down the program, which is here, and then the program is finished. If we have a look in Python, very similar. We have to bring in the random library to be able to create a random number. Once we've got that in, we have a variable called number which stores that random number between 1 and 20. The user has a guess. We tell them to pick 1 and 20, and the first guess has a value of 1. So we have this while loop again running here. And this loop runs until this condition is met, which is the user's guess does match the number. So in the first instance, if the user's guess is less than the number, we say too low, we add 1 to this guesses number to feed back how many guesses. If they had have picked a number that was higher than the number, we would say you're too high, and the guesses variable is increased by 1. If they do get the number correct, either the first time or however many times, the program breaks out of that loop and then reads the last line which says, you got it, it took you, and whatever number this is, this might be 6, it would say it took you 6 guesses. Looking at the JavaScript code, we have a variable to store a number between 1 and 20. We ask the user for their guess and store that in another variable. And then we just change the value of that variable from a string, which is the default input, and just convert it to a number so that we can run through our program. I should have said that also in Python. We have this integer here to convert in the same manner. And we start at guesses 1 when the person takes their first guess. We have a while loop that opens up here and runs down to this closing curly brace. and it's very similar. If the user's guess is less than the number, too low, add 1 to the feedback guess variable. If the number is too big, too high, increase the guesses variable by 1. And then the trick with this one is to put the prompt in again inside this loop. Even though we've already got it up here, we had to put it inside the loop because otherwise it isn't clear to the user what they do next. And then this loop runs over and over until this condition is met, which is the user's guess does match that number, and then we read this last line. Now, one word of caution when we're working with while loops. So while loops run until the condition is met. So with this code, it is quite possible to run an infinite loop if you haven't typed this properly. Now, it's nothing to be too scared of at this stage, but you might lose your work. So before you actually do some testing in this one, once you've got the while loop in, copy your work somewhere else and save it. There is a good chance that if you run an infinite loop, you might have to close this down and reopen it in case you might lose your work. Just a little word of caution there. Okay, so now that we've had a look at it in this manner, let's build it from scratch. Okay, let's just get the text version working first, and then we can come back and add the Andy character in. So first thing we want to do is create variables. The first variable is going to store the random number between 1 and 20. So we can just click on this and we can see that we get random numbers between 1 and 20. So we want to store that in a variable called number. And set number to that value. And now we want to get the user input. And store the user input into a new variable called user guess. Okay, so now our if conditions. So if user guess is bigger than number, do something, and also if user guess is less than number, then do something else. So we'll just get started. So we'll just put some dummy text in for now. So we'll say too high and too low. Okay, and we want to repeat this until the condition is met. Repeat until. Repeat all of this until the user guess does match the random number. So it will just loop in here forever until the numbers match. Then it can go down to the next block of code. And if it does match, we can just say, let's just see how this looks at the moment. So we can see in our testing, we have these checks on our variables. The actual number is 17, so I'm going to avoid that number at first. Too low, that's fine. I'll try higher. So you can see here higher, and now I'll try getting it. Now we wanted to do the part where we feed back to the users how many guesses it took them. So to start with, we create a new variable called guesses. And we're going to set that to 1 to start with, because it will activate when they take their first guess. Now, every time one of these conditions that don't match, something happens. So if the user's guess is too big, we say too high, but we want this number to increase by 1. So we're going to set guesses to and guesses plus 1. So we call this incrementing. And we're going to just put that block in here. So the actual number is 14. I'm going to go below it. I'm on my second guess now. I'm going to go above it. And on my third guess, I'm going to get it. So because this variable has the number 3 in it, we can now feed back to the user that it took you 3 guesses to get it. So all we have to do is put a join block in here. So now we've got some concatenation here. It took you how many guesses? And all we have to put in there is the variable guesses. So at this stage it would say, you guessed it, it took you 3 guesses. Let's try one more time now we've got that working. The number is 16. I'm going to say 15. And I'm going to get it on my second guess. Okay, and you can see I just need to put a space on there. If you want to change the backdrops. Costume. I thought that was a good one for too high. That was a good one for him asking the questions, and this is a good one for when you get the result. And so I'll delete those. So by default, I want to switch my costume in looks to Andy C. When I click on the green flag, this is how Andy is going to look. When he's here too high, I want him to switch to B, say too high, and then switch back to C. He can stay the same on too low, and when we guess it, switch to D and then back to C. Let's have a look now. Oh, I'm going to take off the variables. It's not much of a guessing game if you can see the answer. Okay, and last step is just to change the backdrops. I chose that one and I placed him there. Okay, now over to Python. So as I mentioned before, to do that sort of animation, is quite challenging in Python, and it would just put your students off at this stage. So I'm just going to do the text version, and we can come back and refactor it in another video down the track. Okay, so in Python, we want to pick a random number. We need to import the random library. Once we've done that, from here, we can create a variable and assign it the value of random.rand integer between 1 and 20, and let's just print this out so that we can see. Just test that it's working. Okay, so we're getting random numbers picked by the computer. So that part is working. Okay, so we no longer need this test. Okay, the next variable we need is the user guess. So it's user input. But because the default data type from an input from Python is a string of text, we need to convert it to a number or an integer. So we need the int method, and then we can put this inside of there to convert it to a number. So now we have a number when the user types in. And just to test, let's print the value of this variable. Fine, that's working great. Okay, so now we need our while loop. So before we do the while loop, we might just set our parameters. If user guess is less than number, print too low. Okay, so we need the else if, which is elif in Python. So that's our two conditions that we want to put inside the while loop. Now what we need to do is actually indent these. So we'll go up to here and hit tab on that one and tab on that one, tab, tab. Now indenting is very important in Python. So while user guess does not equal number, so that now will run until this condition is met of those two. And the final step we had to do was inside the loop, again, put in something to let the user know what's going on. So because we already have this variable, we can put it inside the loop, and we can say it now changes to an integer of user input. And just so we're not writing the same thing, we can just put try again. Okay, now at the end of our while loop, let's say the condition is met and you break out. Well, then we want to say print you got it. Let's test our program so far. Now, to make testing easier, I'm actually going to print the value of that variable number just so I can see what it is for testing. Let's try again. So the actual number is 14, so I could pick lower than 14. I can pick higher than 14. And I can see I need a space in here. And I'm going to pick 14. So it's broken out of the loop and the game has stopped. So everything is working well. Now it's just a matter of fleshing out with those extras. So every time the user guess is too low or too high, we want to increase the value of how many guesses. So we'll start with variable called guesses has a value of 1. This is the first guess. If they get it wrong, this case or that case, it doesn't matter. What's going to happen is that guesses is going to equal the current value of guesses plus 1. We're incrementing that variable by 1. So because both of these indicate that the guesses were wrong, both of those will work in this case. And at the end here, we can now say so we have a string of text concatenating with a comma. We're going to put in the hard-coded value of this variable here, comma again, and we're just going to write the word guesses so that it looks sensible to the user. Let's try running it now. So it's 4 and I'm on my first guess. Too low. Second guess. Too high. Pick it. And it took me 3 guesses. So I can see because I've used the commas there, I don't need that space in there, nor do I need the space in there. One more time. Too high. Too low. And pick it exactly. And the output looks sensible. Let's have a look at JavaScript now. So let's look at the logic first. First step is to create a random number between 1 and 20 and store that in a variable, which we're going to call number. Then we put up a prompt box asking somebody to pick a number between 1 and 20. And then we compare. So if the user's input is less than the random number, say too low, if the user's guess is more than the random number, say too high, and if they get it, you say you got it. So you could either say if it equals to exactly, or in this case we can actually just say otherwise, because the first choice, if it's less than, then do this. If it's more than, then do this. Therefore, the only other option is if they match. So we can say otherwise or use the else statement. The variable called number stores the math.random function. Now I'm going to print this out and then I'm going to talk a little bit about it. So I'm going to alert the value of this variable called number. And each time I run, I get a random number between 0 and 20. Okay, so I can get rid of that tester now. So how does math.random work? Well, let's start from earlier on. If we just have math.random, this will generate a random number between 0 and 1. I'm going to write this over to the document to make it easier to see. 0.73, 0.93, 0.46. So I need to multiply this number, let's say by 20, 14.79, 0.65, 10.08. So now if I round this down with, we've got math.random here. If I do math.floor, and I put that inside of there, let's have a look now. Now we're getting whole numbers. Now the only catch here is that it's going to display numbers from 0 through to 19. So I'm just going to add 1 to this, and that will now give us a range from 1 through to 20 of random numbers. So the first step of random number between 1 and 20 is done, but we've got to store it in a variable called number. So instead of writing it to the document, I'm going to create a variable called number and assign the value of that random number. Okay, second step is the prompt box. So if I run my program now, the first step is already done behind the scenes, generating the random number. The computer's got one, and it's put up a prompt box asking me to put in a number between 1 and 20. However, my user input isn't saved anywhere, so I need to save that. The variable called user guess is assigned the value of the prompt box, which is the user input. Next step, if the user's guess is less than the random number, say too low. So if a condition is true, then run the code that's between the curly braces. I'm just going to write that out. So if a condition is true, then run this code here. So if the condition is that the user's number is less than the random number. So if the value of this variable, user guess, is less than the randomly generated number, then run this code. And the code that we're going to run is an alert that runs a string of text that says too low. Similarly, if the user's guess is more than the random number, say too high. So we could copy that whole block, paste that in there, and change the condition. So if user guess is higher than number, then run this block of code, which is going to say too high. And finally, if any other option, so this should say else if, and then the last choice is just else, all else, then run this block of code, which is going to say you got it. Now we're going to run this now. It's not perfect. It's stepping stones along the way. It's not the finished version, as you'll see. So behind the scenes, it's generated a random number. For the purposes of testing, I want to see what that random number is. So I can print or alert the value of this random number, just so that I can see with my testing. So it's picked a random number of 19, so I know this now. So now I could put in a number that's too low. That works, except now the game is over. So if I run the program again, it's going to generate a new number. So I can still test it. We know that too low works. I want to test for too high now. So it's generated 7. So if I put 10, I can test if the too high works. Now we're going to have to run the whole game again. I want to now test for matching. So 1. So pick a number between 1 and 20. If I pick 1, you got it. So now what we need is the while loop around this code here. And we want to say that while the user guess does not equal the number, well then keep running this code here, letting people choose too high, too low, and to be able to pick new numbers until they get the right one. But if user guess does equal the number, then break out of that block of code and come down to this one. So I'm going to just tab twice on that one, twice on each line. So the while loop will look like this. So while a condition is true, run this block of code. So the condition that we want to be true is while user guess does not equal the variable called number. Then run this code. So I'm going to cut out all of that, give myself plenty of space, and paste in there. So we can see we've got, that's one set of brackets, that's another set of brackets, and then that's the final overarching set of brackets. Now, because we're outside of the loop, I don't need the else. All I've got to do is write the code that says alert, you've got it. Let's try it now. So I know that 7 is the number, so I want to go below 7. And I'm stuck in a forever loop. So to break out of this forever loop, the only thing I can really do is hope that it's saved my work, copy this to a new browser, and it's going to run. Because I put this catch in here, I know that I can put in 15 and break out of the loop. So if I put in 15, I've broken out of the loop. Okay, so why did that happen? Let's think about it. While user guess does not equal number, we're going to be in the loop. Now we were here at this point. The user guess was less than the number, and it was too low. And there was no point that I could put in any other number, so of course that was going to loop and loop and loop. So what I need to do in here is put in another prompt box. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say that variable user guess equals prompt box try again, and this will give me a chance to put in a new number to break out of the loop. Let's have a look. Okay, so there you saw how you can get out of a while loop. Now, in a classroom situation, that can be very tricky. So plan ahead and give yourself time, and I don't expect it's going to work as smoothly. Like all things, it's experience, but people do need to get experience with getting stuck in loops and knowing how to get out of them. Okay, so that's going to conclude this video. Okay, let's now move to JavaScript. So we've done math.random before. I'll run through it again. So we have math. So if we alert this to see what it looks like, run, so I get numbers between 0 and 1. So now I need to multiply it by, let's say, 20. And now I've got 13.6, 11.11, 15.29. So now I need to round that down. So if I go math.floor and I put the math.random inside the math.floor, now I'm getting whole numbers between 0 and 20, except that JavaScript, because it's strictly between, it's actually picking numbers from 0 through to 19. So I'm just going to add 1 to it to pick numbers between 1 and 20. Hopefully I haven't lost you on that part. That's the hardest part. Now that's done. Okay, so we're going to put a variable called number to store that random math value, and let's just have a look at what it looks like. So if I want to output the value of that variable over to the document window. 15, 4, 18, 4. Great. No longer need that line of code to test it. So we need a variable for the user's guess. So we need the var keyword. And we're going to do a prompt box. And we're going to ask them to pick a number between 1 and 20. That will look like this. Now my value disappeared, except it is actually stored in this variable, so I can output the value of that variable whatever I type in is now usable. So I know that it's not only picking a random number and storing that in a variable, it's also storing the user input into a variable, and these are the two things that we're comparing. So now we'll do our while loop. So if the condition of the variable user guess being less than the variable called number, then the code we want to run alerts too low. Else, if the condition of the variable user guess being bigger than the variable called number, well then the code we want to run is alert too high. And then we just want to have inside this loop a prompt to tell the user what to do. So we'll use the variable we already have declared. And tell them to try again. And we just need a closing bracket for this one here, so that now we have that block of code is run when this condition is met. So the condition is basically saying when the numbers don't match, but if they do match, it will ignore that block of code and go down to this one, which says you got it. Yeah, so let's try running. Okay, so our program is working. Now we want to let people know how many guesses they have left. We've already established the variable called guesses has a value of 1. So if they get it wrong in the instance of user guess being less than number, as well as alerting hello, we can change the value of this variable, increment it by 1, and if they get it wrong by being too high, and then we can feed back how many it took them. Using concatenation. You got it, it took you 4 guesses. So now we have the higher or lower game working across Scratch, Python and JavaScript.